Welcome to This Explainer. Let's be real for a second. Using generative AI today, it often feels like absolute magic. I mean, you type a quick prompt and literally seconds later, you get a beautifully written essay, a complex piece of code, or an entire business plan. But today, we're going to pop the hood and see how this engine actually works. Because as it turns out, treating AI like some all-knowing oracle and just handing it our blind trust can be incredibly costly. So we're going to break down this illusion of AI and figure out how to actually use it safely.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start by looking at the cost of blind trust, explore exactly why AI makes mistakes, and unpack the black box problem. Then we'll talk about keeping a human in the loop, and finally, how to build some actionable AI safety nets.
All right, Section 1. The cost of blind trust and some real-world failures.
$100 billion. Just let that sink in for a second. That is the sheer scale of the financial damage caused when Google's AI Bard made a claim during its very first promotional video. It said the James Webb Space Telescope took the first images of a planet outside our solar system. It stated it as an absolute, undeniable fact. The problem? NASA quickly pointed out that the first exoplanet image actually predated the Webb telescope by 16 whole years. Because of that single AI hallucination in a very public promo, Alphabet stock tanked 7.7% in one trading session. That is $100 billion in market value, just wiped out.
And it's definitely not just big tech companies making these blunders. Look at this quote from a recent UK court case, Cork v. Smith. A junior lawyer used AI to research insolvency law. Well, the AI generated a completely fake text inventing Insolvency Rule 12.375 totally out of thin air, giving the court powers that literally did not exist. The lawyer didn't verify the rule, completely ignored the AI's own warning that it might be wrong, and just submitted it. The judge issued a serious reprimand for misleading the court, calling it a completely cavalier attitude to accuracy.
And this is a massive problem across all kinds of industries. In Avianca, ChatGPT completely fabricated 6 legal citations, which ended up costing the lawyers a $5,000 sanction. Then there's the Air Canada chatbot, which just invented a bereavement fair policy that didn't actually exist. Air Canada actually tried to argue that the chatbot was a separate legal entity, because, sure, the robot went rogue and started its own airline business, but the tribunal forced them to pay the passenger anyway. In healthcare, it gets even scarier. OpenAI's Whisper model was found fabricating medication names in patient records with a 1.4% error rate. Globally, we're looking at over 1,394 court cases tracking AI-hallucinated content right now. The operational, legal, and reputational damage here, it's just staggering.
Which brings us to Section 2. Why AI makes mistakes. Let's look under the hood.
So, that illusion of the all-knowing AI oracle totally shatters when you understand something called next token prediction. Generative AI is not a librarian going into the stacks to look up facts in an encyclopedia. It's essentially just doing probability math. It breaks your prompt down into tokens and calculates what word is most likely to come next based on patterns from its training data. It is literally just guessing what sounds fluent. It optimizes for plausibility, not truth.
And that brings us to the term of the hour, AI hallucination. Because the model is just filling its knowledge gaps with the most probable sounding words, it frequently presents pure fiction as absolute fact. And guys, this is not some rare glitch. According to the Stanford AI Index, hallucination rates across leading large language models can range from 22% to an astonishing 94%, all depending on how complex the task is.
There's a massive misconception out there where people treat ChatGPT like a search engine. They are fundamentally completely different tools. A search engine pulls live, real-time pages from the internet and shows you actual verifiable links. ChatGPT predicts patterns based on its training data, and that data has a strict cutoff date. If it doesn't know something, its programming actually compels it to generate a response anyway, which is exactly why it invents citations and completely struggles with super niche facts or recent events.
All right, Section 3. The black box problem. Let's talk about opacity and ethics.
Deep learning models and neural networks are incredibly complex. We feed them data, they perform billions of invisible calculations, and out pops a result. This opacity is what we call the black box, and it makes it incredibly difficult for everyday users to understand exactly why a decision was made. That breeds a lot of mistrust and honestly makes troubleshooting almost impossible.
And the risks hidden inside this black box are both mechanical and ethical. Think about data bias, right? Generative AI learns straight from the internet, which means it just mechanically inherits all our historical data and stereotypes, potentially skewing everything from hiring algorithms to AI-generated art.
Then there's overfitting, where a model basically memorizes its training data way too rigidly and then totally fails when you ask it something new. We also see this incredible realism opening the door for severe misuse. Think deepfakes, misinformation, or accidental copyright infringement. And finally, accountability. If an AI writes a defamatory article or gives someone bad medical advice, who's responsible? The developer? The user? The black box completely obscures the answer.
Okay, Section 4, the human in the loop, knowing when it's actually safe to trust the machine.
Now this framework right here, you should absolutely memorize this. It segments tasks beautifully. AI is a brilliant, totally tireless assistant for safe tasks, brainstorming ideas, drafting routine emails, explaining complex concepts, or sketching out an outline. But look over at the right column. It is wildly unsafe to use AI without strict human review for a medical diagnosis, drafting a binding legal contract, making financial investments, handling an emergency, or sharing any confidential business data. The bottom line, the higher the stakes, the less you can rely on the machine alone.
And that brings us to HIL, human-in-the-loop validation. All this means is purposefully integrating human oversight to fact-check the AI before its output reaches the real world. Adding a human expert back into the loop is basically our ultimate defense against hallucinations. It makes sure we don't accidentally deploy biased, incorrect, or legally compromising info while still letting us enjoy the speed of AI drafting.
Finally, Section 5, building AI safety nets. Let's get into some actionable frameworks you can use right away. So if you're deploying AI at an enterprise level, you absolutely need RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. Instead of letting the AI just guess answers from its vast generic training data, a RAG pipeline forces the AI to search a specific, verified internal database first. It essentially grounds the AI. You're telling the model, hey, look up the answer in our approved company documents, and if it's not there, just admit you don't know. This drastically reduces factual errors.
But hey, what if you're just using AI for everyday marketing and content creation? Well, you need a structured quality assurance framework so you aren't just doing ad hoc proofreading. Step 1, verify brand tone. AI loves to default to robotic, generic buzzwords. You have to edit it so it actually sounds like your brand. Step 2, check factual accuracy. Every single data point, price, or technical claim the AI spits out must be backed by an external source. Step 3, legal compliance. You have to make sure the AI hasn't accidentally violated consumer protection laws or copyright guidelines by inventing totally false product claims.
For your day-to-day tasks, make a habit of running through this AI trust checklist. Ask yourself, is this answer backed by real evidence? Are the links it gave me actually real, or did it just hallucinate them? Is the info up to date? Have I double-checked this specific stat on Google? Does this decision actually require a real human expert? And critically, did I accidentally paste sensitive company data into the prompt? You need to answer yes to these safeguards before you act on any AI outputs.
You can also stop a lot of hallucinations before they even start, just by changing how you talk to the AI. When you prompt safely, you give rich, specific background context. Now, AI loves to be a sycophant and just agree with whatever you say, so actively command it to play devil's advocate and challenge your ideas. Break massive requests into smaller steps so the AI doesn't lose the plot. And if you're working with data, use constraints like JSON schemas. Forcing the AI into a highly structured format really limits its room to fabricate things.
So, what should you take away from all this? Generative AI is an incredible, paradigm-shifting tool. It can make you faster, sharper, and way more creative. But it is just a thinking partner. It is absolutely not a replacement for your own critical judgment. The soul of the work, the factual integrity, and the final responsibility, that must always, always come from a human being.
I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to take into your next project. When you sit down to use generative AI, ask yourself, are you truly the author of this work, skillfully commanding a tool? Or have you surrendered so much trust to the machine that you've just become its editor? Stay engaged, verify everything, and keep the human in the loop. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.